What is up, everybody? I am Tim Ellerbrook, and I'm with my good friend, Brian Caplinger. And welcome to our first episode. Welcome to the first episode of Who is on First? How you doing, man?
I'm good, brother. It's just fun to finally be in studio, and, you know, we're literally less than like 2 weeks away from like...
We created our own studio and everything just for a baseball podcast. No,
right. No, that's not true, but hey... I'll take it, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited. We've been talking about this for, like a couple of years, maybe a year.
Yeah.
At work, we get yelled at all the time that, oh, hey, you guys are still talking about baseball outside of each other's offices, and it's like, you should do something, and we're like, nah. But hey, we finally did it.
We did. We stepped up, got our thoughts together instead of just arguing in the hallway and making everybody shut their doors, or at least putting headphones on.
Although we'll probably still do that. So they're not getting away from it that easy.
Never.
The reason that we wanted to do this is we're both super passionate about baseball, and I fell in love with it at a lot later time in life, but I thought it'd be kind of fun just briefly to talk about, you know, the what and why. First, when we started working out together 4 or 5 years ago, I guess post-COVID probably.
Yeah.
Or maybe before. And when we were in the sauna, we would just talk about work all the time. And I was like, I want to talk about something else. So I started trying to learn about baseball and sports. I don't know if I told you this, but I started learning about baseball just to try have something to talk to you about aside from work, because I mean that's just what we do. I mean we work together also, but I also ended up falling in love with it too, and it also happened to coincide with, you know, the magical run that Pujols went on, because we are Cardinals fans.
Sucked you right in.
It sucked me right in. I remember watching a video, like going backwards a little bit, just to watch, you know, previous other videos and stuff, and watching a clutch home run. I think it was the Matt Adams home run. And as I was getting enthralled in it, I was really watching. I was like, it made me weep. Just like I just started crying as a baby at this, or like a baby with this like 1 minute video of a home run out of the middle of nowhere, and I was like, this is amazing. And so I just fell in love with the baseball. What about you?
It's easy to do. So for me, yeah, completely different. Obviously, grew up playing baseball, playing sports in general, but baseball was always the one I seemed to excel at. Some of that's credit to my dad. He was a hard worker. He played ball his whole life, had some opportunities at higher levels, didn't pan out for him. And so I kind of reaped some of the benefit of that. Played my whole life, travel ball, all of that fun stuff. Played at some decent levels, but as I got a little bit older, realized that, you know, my chances of getting to the professional ranks were slim and none. Yeah. And so backed off of that, but never away from the game. So I've followed it all the time. I mean, you know, growing up, being able to go to Camden Yards for the All-Star games, things like that, just continued to just build this passion. And so even now, it's like, even though I don't technically play, I'm still around the ball field all the time because I get the opportunity to broadcast and call high school and college games. And so I make sure I stay around the game just because it's so much fun. And who knows, maybe one day you'll see me on the sideline coaching at some point.
You would be a really good coach too. That's something that you're definitely built for, pushing people and stuff like that.
We'll see, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the competitive side of me will kick in too much. I got to be careful with that.
You are an emotional fan of the sport, at least, and I guess probably all sports. To be honest,
I was gonna say you saw a little bit of it at the Super Bowl party last night, and my teams weren't even in there.
Yeah, more so that championship round. With you being a Washington fan.
Yes, yes.
So we are Cardinals fans through and through on a personal level, but we also want to make this podcast somewhat relevant to the national baseball world and audience, and hopefully, you know, some of our friends along the way might be able to get them to be as obsessed with baseball as we can. I think that's really our goal. We just want to get all of our friends to love and be obsessed with the sport as much as we are.
Yeah, I just want to argue with some more people about sports.
He's tired of arguing with me. So he just wants to expand the audience a little bit. So being Cardinals fans first, something I want to ask you is this coming season, we've had almost nothing happen so far, but there's been an elephant in the room of what's going to happen with the team. But first, I want to go over some things that happened from last season to this season. So the team has let Goldie walk. He had a 716 OPS last year. That's a 98 OPS plus. He signed a year deal with the Yankees. We've also let Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn walk, who were two starters. Gibson had a 4.24 ERA and a 3.84 ERA. Lynn had a 3.84 ERA. They were pretty dependable starters, I'd say. Lynn was hurt for like a stint towards the end of the season, but still put up a 3.8 ERA. He gave us some heart attacks, but
as Lance Lynn does.
Yeah, he gave us some animated starts that we all loved. And then we also lost Andrew Kittredge, who was a reliever in the back end of the bullpen. He was a really, really solid bullpen arm, a great setup for Helsley. He had a 2.8 ERA. He's ended up signing with the Orioles. Carpenter is gone, and Keenan Middleton, who was also middle reliever, but who never threw a pitch for us. He was injured. I think he had was it elbow, forearm, one of the two, injury the whole season. But apparently he was also really, really good for the young guys and talking. That's what reporters have said. But that kind of leads me to the question. The whole thing about the season is letting the young kids play,
right.
Whatever that quote of that. So Arenado is still on this team, and they had the intent at the beginning of the offseason to have him traded, but he's still there. So my question is, can this team move forward? Can they accomplish the goals they set out to? Can the kids play enough if Arenado is still on this team?
I mean, simple answer is no. Right? When I think about it and I look at it, I mean, if you're going to make the statement of we really need to get the young guys playing, the Cardinals over the past few years, it's no secret. I think, all radio shows, television broadcasts, all of it talk about it. I mean, they're log jammed, especially at positions, and third base is one of them. We've seen a number of quality guys, or what we would call high prospects, have to switch positions, because Arenado is there, and the dude's a player. Like, I don't want to knock him. I think Arenado's a great guy. We've had this conversation, so I know you'll want to chime in. I just don't think he's the guy, and that may seem kind of odd to a lot of people. Like, I think he's a great ball player. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think all those things are true. His defense is elite. But I don't think he really can lead a team. I think if you put him in a team scenario where you've got a group of leaders, he's going to stand out. And I think with some of the young kids, he did pull some of them in. Like we've talked, Wynn really enjoyed his presence, those type of things. I think there's a lot to learn. Like you even got reports today. He's one of the first ones down there at spring training getting stuff together, which I love.
Yeah.
But if we're going to move forward, I think you have to move on from him, because it opens up the availability to let some of these other guys like Gorman, some of the other players, even Sagasi in that manner, get more consistent playing time. And if you're going to be able to see what you have, whether this is a reset, as Mo would say, or a retooling, whatever you want to call it.
A re-something.
Right. You got to start making moves.
Yeah.
And this is the big one, because this is holding up everything, whether they want to believe it or not. It's slowing the process down tremendously.
Yeah.
And, again, they haven't made any big splashes. I mean, obviously they signed, a couple players here, a utility guy from Minnesota's coming over, so I get some of the moves that they've made. It's all depth stuff for injury possibilities and things like that. But at the same time, it's like, let's just get this done. And I know the talks have ramped back up between the Dodgers and Boston and Yanks and all that fun stuff. But it's like, I think all Cardinals fans, and I'll speak for this, are just like, let's get something moving. And I think we all know the something is he has to go. I mean, if he's on this team, I think he's going to give it his all. He's that type of guy, but his heart's not here. And if his heart's not here, I don't know that you want him here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with the last question. I think if he played here, I I think if he ended up staying, that he would play the rest of his career here. I don't think he would flip flop like, okay, yeah, you can trade me. Oh, can't trade. I'll play, a little bit longer. I do agree that I've gone back and forth on this. Actually, I've changed my mind a couple times just based on reports and also seeing stuff. I don't think Gorman's defense is going to be good enough for Cardinals fans, including myself. Like the history of Cardinals fans is just us loving defense. Like that's the calling card of the St. Louis Cardinals. And while he probably statistically will be like just average, maybe just right at average, not below average, and I don't think that will be good enough. Now, with a Gold Glover to his left with Wynn, could make up for that. But to answer the original question, I don't think he can stay. But I also kind of think now, I think I've changed my mind. I don't think I would mind him staying, with the caveat that someone else has to go. Like they would have to get rid of one of the young players to get another pitcher, or, to get something out of them.
So who's going in your mind? If Nato stays.
So if Gorman was to be the third baseman, that would make Burleson the DH. So you're kind of really talking like who you're going to get rid of because they're both left-handed bats. I probably would. I don't know, man. The ceiling is higher for Gorman, 100%, but his floor is really low too. Like if he could play the rest of his career like he did last year and just like completely lost at the plate, not being able to make contact, like that's his thing. I don't know, dude. I struggle. If I could stick a Gorman at DH, does the rest of our lineup have enough contact to make up for how much contact he doesn't have? I think I would probably get rid of Gorman because you might be able to get something more for him than you could Burleson.
Yeah, I think you're right there. If you're looking at value in and of itself, Gorman definitely has the higher value because there is a higher ceiling with a player like that. And you hear all the talk all the time. A left-handed power bat's really, really hard to find in MLB. And
the Cardinals giving up one of those would be the most Cardinals thing ever. You know what I mean? Like this would be another Arozarena-ish deal. Like, do you guys realize how good this hitter could be? And we just couldn't figure it out. But it would completely be dependent upon the return. Like if Burleson and Gorman are netting the same return, I'm getting rid of Burleson, 100%.
Oh,
because I think Gorman's value is probably pretty low also right now.
Yeah, teams aren't going to be willing to offer a lot based on his prior years' performance. But again, to his age, some of those things, I know Burley's not an old guy either by any stretch, and Burley had a much better year, but he is more of, the old school Matt Carpenter feel, if you will. He's a doubles guy. He's going to find the gaps, those type of things, which I think are super valuable, but they're not a hot commodity on the trade deadline. He might be something that as we get middle of the season, you get more value out of him, whereas Gorman's value is always going to be there. Yeah.
It's really tough because Burleson had a great, like 2/3 of the season, like fantastic. But I don't remember the date. I'd have to look at the numbers, but it was somewhere around August. He just stopped being able to do anything. Hadn't hit a home run the rest of the year. And so for the development side, is Burleson going to be able to stop swinging at pitches outside of the zone, so then he can make contact on good pitches? Because he's going to make contact no matter what. Like that's his game. But you need his average to be like 340 or 320 for it to be an impactful hitter. Because he's probably going to be a 20-ish, 25 home run, probably ceiling. Maybe. I don't know, maybe a little bit more. But contact is his game. He just he swings at everything. So it's like, can his discipline grow enough to offset Gorman's ability to just make contact? Because when he does, it's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. And I think that's why, going back to the original question, that's why for me, it's time to trade Nolan Arenado.
So you can see both?
Yeah, you got to see both for a season.
Yeah,
like, I mean, you got to give these young guys some runway. You've got to allow them to play every day. And sure, like, it pains my heart very much to say this, but it's okay if we have one of those seasons where we're 60, 70 wins on the year, but we really know what we have.
Yeah.
I'm tired of playing this game as a fan.
The middle game.
Yeah, where we've got a team that we feel like can compete. It's like, I don't want to live in the realm of feeling anymore. Like, I understand injuries play a part. Like, you can't always predict those things, but let's not feel it anymore. Let's just say, yeah, we know we got a team that can compete because we've seen what they've done versus this. Man, when these guys are right, they're pretty good. It's like, yeah, but they're only right like a third of the time.
Yeah. This is kind of a small thing, but it's, listening to some different podcasts the last couple of weeks, if we do get rid of Arenado, that's the last Hall of Famer that we have left. And that kind of stings a little bit. Like, with, the Edmonds interview that came out the last week, talked about how many Hall of Famers are a big part of the organization. And if we let him go, there's a really high chance that he won't be a Red Jacket guy. But then also, we just won't have a Hall of Famer in our organization at all like we used to have. Like, because Goldie was one, but we let him walk. Now, rightfully so, he needed to go. We needed that space, and he was kind of on the downtrend. And we love him. Like, he's still a dude, you know what I mean? But, like, us fans losing a Hall of Famer that might be hard to swallow. Maybe not, but...
See, this is where I'm going to push back a little, and I think this is probably where some fans might disagree with me, or even some of the listeners would probably chime in.
What listeners?
Right. What listeners? We'll see. But, they'll chime in on this side. I don't think we give Willie enough credit. Like, I'm not saying he's necessarily going to be like this Hall of Fame candidate.
Yeah.
But the dude is a player. He consistently puts up offensive numbers.
Baller. Yeah.
Right. And I think we undersell, who he is to this team, even though he hasn't been here long enough, to really make his statement.
Gotten the worst treatment of all time, too.
The
whole time.
I mean, just a rough go. I mean, when you get a backswing that breaks your arm, like, that's rough.
Even the organization in, like, 23, with how he was treated.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of issues, and this dude, again, he's refusing to go anywhere because he feels like he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got to prove something. And then yet here we go again in the offseason. Hey, dude, you're not going to catch. We're going to put you at first base. And I have some varying opinions about that. Like, I don't hate the idea of that because I want him to stay on the field, and this is really a good way to keep him playing more of the season.
I'm with it there. Yeah, I agree.
And so I like that.
Yeah.
But I think this guy could really kind of become that leader, and he has the same passion. Please hear this in the right tone. I'm not saying he's the same player, but he has the same passion that Yachty brought to the game. And I think that's what the young guys need to see.
Careful with those words.
Right. That's why I had to clarify. He's not the same player. He's not the same player.
I agree with you. He's got that passion that the Yachty brought. His bat is so underrated too for some reason. Like the 2 seasons he's been here, he's been one of the best bats of the team. And I think that move to first base, although it's the defense probably will be rocky for a little bit. Like him never doing that will be huge for the team. And if you take his numbers from last year and put them at first base, he was one of the top first basemen. Or top 5 or top 7 first baseman in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, he's already, in the top 10 in consideration for best first baseman in preseason statistics. Totally. I mean, you look at that, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people because of his drive. I don't think his defense is going to be as bad as some people think it will be.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
I think there are going to be hiccups. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, anytime you're changing positions, you're learning a new footwork scheme. You're learning a lot of different things. But if I was a betting man, I'd bet on this dude to succeed because that's what he's done his whole career.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to fight. Okay, so next question, since we are Cardinals fans, and this is the beginning of the season, something I think would be fun to do is going into camp. Camp starts this week. Our podcast comes out the week of spring training. Who would have thought?
Right.
Since this is the year that, like, hey, all these kids got to play, I want to hear 3 players that you're looking out for and why on this team, and what you need to see from them in camp to say that they're on the right they're on the right trajectory to figure it out.
You want me to go with all 3? Or do you want to try and bounce this back and forth?
Let's start the first one. Let's see how long the answer is.
Because I can talk about this first one.
Yeah, I know.
So
hit me with your first one.
My first one is simply this, and he's been a guy that, no secret to Cardinals fans. I love him. I was there for his first major league home run, sitting behind the plate, and just, you could see me go crazy in that moment. I think you were beside me. So,
Terrible fun camera.
Right. Is Jordan Walker. And I think, he really has to prove something. I don't think he has to be the star of this team, especially not, in the next couple of years. I think you want to see him develop into that. But if we're just talking this year, and what I want to see from him is not become this elite star this year. I just want to see him get back to swinging the bat. Those exit velos off the bat have to come back up. I don't care if they're, the terminology piss missiles that stay low. Like I don't care about him launching the ball.
Yeah.
And I think he even said it in his winter warm-up interviews and things like that. He's getting back to just his swing. He's not focused on trying to lift the ball and drive it out of the ballpark. And I think that's what got him in trouble last year, was he was overthinking every at bat.
Yeah.
I just want to see him go up there, and hear me, I want him to have a game plan against the pitchers that he's going up there against. Like, I don't want him to just go up there and kind of free ball it and swing at everything. Like, have a plan, but at the same time, be able to just react to what you're seeing. Don't go up there so rigid that, you're looking for this one thing to lift, and this is the pitch that I'm trying to get in the air. Just go up there and react. And if the ball's in a spot you feel like you can do some damage with it, whether that's a line drive rocket down the third base line, go for it. Like, I just want to see him get back to that. And in spring, I'm looking for that swing to just really kind of come together. And again, just hit the ball hard. I'm not looking at average this year. Do I want to see the home runs go up? Absolutely, because dude's got some tremendous power. Those type of things, I think, have to increase to a degree. And so with that, I think we'll have to see what happens, what unfolds with that. But if he, again, you talk about, you go back to his first year, he's a 270 hitter.
Yeah, he had
16 home runs.
He had a great rookie year.
Right. And then he comes back and he's got this newfound swing, and he barely hits 200 before he's sent down. He goes through this massive rut. He's only got 5 home runs. It's like, it's not working.
Yeah.
And I think some of the good news is we got a new hitting coach that's working with him. And so I want to see improvement in that, in the sense of just go back to hitting the ball hard.
Yeah. All the beat writers at the warm-up talked about how his attitude, it's cheesy to say, like, his facial expression, just his smile, and his thoughts about everything was changed. Like, you could tell a difference in him coming into this year and then last year, and they talked about how they hadn't seen him. And then I remember him talking about how his work with Brownie, which is the hitting coach, has been a really big deal. And I don't think the Ava had actually met yet, or maybe that was someone else. But his attitude and his confidence is different. He's grown up, he's 2 years older-ish, so that could make a difference. But I think that will play for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people forget he's still really young.
Yeah, super.
He's younger than most of these elite young guys we would consider in the game. And so, him coming up as early as he did, you expect some of the hiccups. Yeah. Maybe not quite to what happened last year. And again, much like I think most Cardinals fans were still a little dumbfounded at some of the decision-making process that happened with that.
100%.
Because I think with a young guy like that, you just got to let him play.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that's why going into this season is a big deal.
Yeah.
Is just give him a runway, because I think he's going to surprise people defensively. He's athletic enough. Now, I don't think he's going to be a Gold Glover. I'm not saying that, but I think he's going to be an above-average defensive player.
Yeah.
His arm definitely plays in right field. There's no question about that. And so really for me, what he's got to hang his hat on is his offensive side.
Yeah.
Because that's what got him to be that high-profile prospect. So just go back to that.
Yeah, you can't stick that arm in a position that's not going to be utilized, like first base or DH. And he's too young to just put him in that position too. But it's gonna be at the cost of like making really dumb decisions sometimes. But again, to your point, yeah, he's just got to play because he's so young.
Yeah, and I think that's where it amplifies again, and not to like completely go off topic here, but your center fielder is going to be critical this year, whether that's VS2 or it is Siani. I know those two are going to battle it out, in spring. But if they can cover ground that Walker doesn't have to cover, if they can make plays in the gap that he doesn't have to cover and let him just focus on right field by itself, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
He's not going to be elite. Like, you're not looking at, Kyle Tucker in right field that can play defense and then get up there and swing the bat.
Yeah.
You're looking at a guy that's going to be an average outfielder.
If he's average, that's a win.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to get there. And then you want to see some of that elite bat. You want to see some of that, pop. And again, I'm thinking realistically, 20-25 home runs would be a huge win for him this year.
Yeah.
Out of that. Now, if the dude goes nuts, I'm going to be the first one cheering him on and going, I told you he could be a 40 home run guy. But realistically, let's just put it at 20-25.
Yeah, if he stops swinging at those breaking balls low and away, that's a big one. So for me, my first one, I'm going to go with Wynn. Mason Wynn, he's my favorite player. It's my first jersey I ever bought, baseball jersey I ever bought. For me, I just want to see forward progress. And the goal I'd like to see him, and I think he's got the talent for it, is like a 2020 season. I think he can reach 20 home runs and a minimum 20 stolen bases. He talked about at the warm-up how he really wants to improve his speed because he has the ability to do it, but he just didn't focus on it a ton, and it fell off in the season for him. I mean, but first rookie year, lots going through your mind, And then I want to see him. I want to see the start trend of him winning Gold Gloves. I think that talent and that capacity is obviously there. He had a top 3 vote for it this year. Got wrongfully snubbed from some dude in Colorado that shouldn't exist. I'm just kidding. That sounds terrible. But he's by far at least the top 3 shortstop defender in baseball, in my opinion. Am I a homer? Probably. But I think that's his ceiling. He's got Ozzie in his ear every spring. Now, can you hold him up to that? No. Can he be that? Maybe. He's got that talent and he's got that personality. But I think he probably could be a 2020 guy. He's fast already. And he hit 15 last year his rookie year. You're only going to get probably only going to get stronger. His season, he falled off in September. Never had a full season like that in his life or played that long. So you kind of let that go. So yeah, that's what I think. What do I need to see out of spring? Him just not fall off the face of the planet. If he stays the same, that means he'll momentum will carry in progress. So that would be mine. I don't think you knew that was gonna happen. I was gonna talk about that though.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Caught me completely off guard with that one. My pushback to that is just simply this: I don't need him to be a 2020 guy. I mean, I think it would be great, but I just want him to play elite level defense like he did last year. Mm-hmm. I want him to start to take command of the infield, be a leader. Mm-hmm. Putting some of these other young guys kind of in their positions, which sounds weird. But when you have, whether it's Gorman or, Donnie's going to play second, he's probably going to be a voice of leadership there.
Yeah.
But, when you are shortstop, you got to take command of the infield.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is not just
Agreed.
this vocal thing, but you're making the elite level plays.
Yeah.
You can have good shortstops that are just average. I think we saw that with DeYoung, and I'm not trying to criticize him, but he was an elite level defender. He made the plays he was supposed to make, and that's really good. But you see the teams that are thriving. You talk about KC and Bobby Witt, you know, and I'm not saying he's like elite defensive guy there in KC, but he makes some unbelievable plays.
Yeah.
And he's commanded the attention of that team. And I think that's what Wynn needs to be. I think he showed it last year, and I think the fan base has gravitated to him. I think he's become kind of that face that they were maybe hoping like Lars Nootbaar or even Jordan Walker would have been.
Yeah.
And he's taken the reins of that. And so really for me, it's just, if he has a similar statistical year, I think it'll be fine.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I think it'll be fine, but
I would take it as long as it's not he's not continuing to fall off in September, because you need him. He's going to be one of the bats you need in October.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest fear for this year, saying 2020, is then you're not talking about a leadoff hitter anymore.
I don't want him to be.
I know you don't want him to be, but I think the Cardinals are going to need him to be until we can define who that's going to be.
Another pick of mine, or another one of mine, will take that spot if I get what I want. But all right, who's your second one?
So my second one, and this may surprise a lot of people, is going to be Michael McGreevy. I think, I think this is a kid I want to watch. His time last year showed me something. 3-0 in his opportunities, sub-2 ERA when he got the opportunity. Now, granted, they weren't like these super high-profile matchups, if you will. But I want to see what he can do. I don't look at him as necessarily like this top-end starter. Like, he's not going to be 1-2 for us. I think we're still trying to develop some of that talent. But I can see him slotting in at 3 and realistically probably 4 or 5 this year.
Yeah.
In that. And if he can just continue to kind of be what I'd say with a better ERA, but can be what Kyle Gibson was, or if you go back, and this might rub some people the wrong way, not last year's Miles Michaelis, but the year before.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah.
His all-star year.
Yeah, not to get to the all-star, but be that type of pitcher that you're going to eat up some innings, you're going to get some wins, you're going to know how to pitch to teams. Because with that sinker ball he has, I know we were talking before we even started recording, he's changed up some of his delivery mechanics to be faster to the plate, those type of things. I think if he can do that, he has an opportunity to kind of be one of those, and again, I don't want to put lofty expectations on this guy, but I think he has the ability to be someone like an Adam Wainwright. That he doesn't have overpowering stuff all the time, but he knows how to combat the lineups that he's facing.
Yeah.
And so I just want to see him come back out and pitch in the same manner this spring. Be effective with that sinker ball. Maybe use some of those other pitches, your fastball, a little bit more up in the zone outside of the sinker to help change the eye level a bit.
Yeah, I was just looking this up. He had 4 starts last year, with an ERA of 1.96. He only had his worst game was against Colorado. He had 3 earned runs, but he was pretty dominant. The defense also let him down in one other game, so there was a couple other runs that he doesn't get credit for. But, I mean, 4 starts, a total of 23 innings with a 1.96 ERA. That's pretty outstanding.
Yeah.
I'd rather see him pitch than Miles Michaelis.
Oh,
any day.
100%. I'm not going to disagree with you right there. Now, I do like what I've heard from Miles in the offseason so far. He seems like last year put a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Like, he wants to come out and prove it to the fans that he can still be that guy. Now,
I don't buy it.
I'm with you. Like, there's a little bit of hesitation in my voice.
He's a good dude
with reason,
but I'm not buying the pitching skill anymore.
Right, because to me, like, there's still so many questions on this rotation. Like, you know what you're going to get with Sonny Gray.
Yeah,
and we can have the argument all day of whether he should be the true ace or not.
But he is.
But he is, right. You know, the Fetty argument, like, we really don't know what we're going to get. And so that scares me, because do we have, like, Miles 2.0 from last year sitting in Fetty, or does he come out and shock us and can be that number 3 guy? Honestly, I think he's going to be a trade piece come whether it's here soon or at the trade deadline.
It probably depends on where they are.
Right.
I see him in a dumb way holding on to him to make a push, which, I mean, you could argue if we really can make a push, you would probably want him. But you could get a lot for him, yeah. Yeah,
at the deadline. And again, I think some of it depends on how the young guys fare.
Yeah.
Which, you know, again, being a Cardinals fan, I'm going to be optimistic. Like, I think they're going to surprise people.
We got to be.
But at the same time, if we start to fall out, use him, pick up some extra pieces, you know, move forward in that. And so then really you're talking about Palante, you're talking about Miles Michaelis, you're talking about Steven Matz, who even is that guy.
Right.
And so there's a lot of opportunities, I think, for if you're really wanting to go this youth movement, is you put a McGreevy in there. I think he's earned the spot, especially in the spring, to say, hey, he's one of our top 5, and let's just put him out there and see what happens.
Absolutely. So my second pick is Ivan Herrera. That kind of coincides with Contreras, because Contreras was the catcher and he's being moved to first base, and that will be a big bonus for us. But Herrera, let me throw something at you. I did this research last night. He only played like 80-something games. It was like 81 or 82, I think. I want to see him. Or no, I'm sorry. That's what I project. So I want to see him catch 80 plus to 90 games. And I want to see him, 140 games playing in some sort of matter between DH and catcher. But last year, what do you think his average was?
I've hidden it on my screen.
Oh,
so
you
I
did?
can't see it. I didn't look at it. Okay. So I'm trying. Oh, man, that's a tough one, because I know he's a good hitter. I want to say 265.
He had a 304 average.
Right. I knew it was going to be that.
He had an 800 OPS last year, 124 OPS plus. So he's 24% above league average hitting. He was our second best hitter on the team, and he played a third of the season last year. Now, if you put a full season numbers behind him, that's probably going to shift a little bit. Maybe it won't, though. I mean, you're not too far off. He's probably not a 300 hitter, but he makes good contact, and he hits the ball really hard. So I just want to see him. I want to see them make the decision like, hey, this kid is good. Is his arm potentially bad? I don't know. I think if you look at his stats and Pedro's stats behind the plate and their metrics for getting to second base, they're almost equal. And Ivan's arm grades out stronger than Pedro's to begin with. So to me, that's like a mechanical adjustment of his pop time, but also the pitchers just need to get the ball to him quicker. If McGreevy was pitching to him and he has one of the best deliveries, the quick deliveries to the plate, can runners even steal on Ivan? Like putting those things together, I just want to see him because, dude, if you have Wilson moving to first base and playing 150 games, your best hitter staying on the field the whole season, your second best hitter behind the dish playing 120, 140 games, hitting 120, 140 games, dude, that is a nasty duo of right-handed hitters.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I mean, again, I'm going to say something that you probably aren't going to like to hear, and most people aren't going to like to hear. I think that spot's just a placeholder.
For who?
And Well, I think Crooks is going to be the next guy that legitimately has a shot. But then I think, when you look at their prospects, Leonardo, yeah, I mean, I think ideally they're really setting the table for him. Now he's, probably realistically 2, maybe 3 years away from even, getting a full opportunity in that regard. And so, I think whether we want to admit it or not, the Wilson Contreras signing was just to bridge the gap from Yachty to the next guy.
Yeah.
And it didn't pan out because it was mishandled. Let's just be honest. It was mishandled. And I think Herrera's ultimate goal was always to be a DH, maybe even the first baseman down the road.
I mean, maybe. Yachty had a lot of stuff to say about him, I remember, in 22 and 21. Is he potentially a placeholder? Are they going to sign him long-term, or are they going to get rid of him in arbitration? Maybe. Probably, but the time period that he's here, the dude can hit.
Oh, no doubt. And that's what I don't want to argue.
He's got the best arm of the two catching duos right now. Now Contreras has the better arm all, but he's going to first base, so it's a moot point.
Right.
But if they can fix his mechanics, and they don't have a catching coach in the entire organization until this year, so it's like, how can you fault the player for not knowing that or not developing that correctly?
Right.
So I just think, dude, he can.
Yeah, and reports are, and look, there's part of me that hopes he proves me completely wrong.
Yeah.
In this, there are reports out there that he's been working really, really hard on his defensive side of the game. Now, I hope that doesn't limit his offensive side with that. And so he could come out and really surprise some things. I think the numbers can be misleading for him behind the plate because some of the fault I don't think totally lies on him. I think it was pitcher's delivery to the plate. I think 100%. There's a lot, the new rules that really enhance stealing, really go against, even some of his ability. Yeah. And so that's why I think, I don't want to put it all on him like he's this horrible player, but I think, in the Cardinals organization, that position was always, once Yachty retired, it was going to be a placeholder. They didn't want to put the guy in there right away because no one's going to live up to Yachty. I mean, the dude owns St. Louis. Let's just be honest.
Still does.
If he calls right now and says, I'm going to be there all year, create a spot for me, dude's going to have a spot.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I think, Herrera's been kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit because of that. I think, some of the development side I don't want to put on
sooner
it.
As you think.
Right. I don't.
To be honest, though, if Herrera broke out in 22 like they thought he would, they probably wouldn't have given a contract to Contreras. But he didn't hit his breakout season until 23. So then 24 was we need to get this kid up here.
Yeah, and again, the Contreras thing, and I don't want to beat a dead horse or just bring up old news for the fact, but I think it was grossly mishandled in the sense of communication-wise.
Yeah.
Because they wanted him to come in as the DH. They didn't want him behind the plate all the time. But he came in with a chip on his shoulder. He wanted to prove he could bridge the gap from Yachty to whoever was next.
Yeah.
And so he kind of forced the issue of being behind the plate to a degree. And again, that's because Willie's a competitor.
Yeah.
He wants to do that. And he wants to prove the naysayers wrong. And I think that's why I love him.
Yeah.
If I were to get a second jersey, it's probably going to be his just because of that attitude.
I thought about that too. It's either him or another player I'll mention later.
But for Herrera, I think there's an upside. And could he come in and storm the gates and be great? 100%. And force the Cardinals' hand at keeping him and make him, a viable catcher? Is he going to be that elite level catcher? No.
Yeah.
He's just not. And I don't.
I agree with that.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
Could he be average defensively?
It depends. It really depends on what you're doing with the rest of your lineup. That's why I think this year is such a big year.
Yeah.
For the Cardinals organization, because you got to know what you have. If he's going to be this quote unquote offensive catcher, then the rest of your defense has to be pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're going to put a lot on your pitching staff because then you're going to look at some of these young pitchers and go, we need you to keep runners off the base. That means lower walks, less singles, all of those, but because there's no threat to throw them out.
If his mechanics are fixed, because again, his arm grades out stronger than it showed last year. If you fix his mechanics, his pop time, and the pitcher's delivery to the plate, what if stealing against him is not the issue anymore?
Then it's a no-brainer, right? Again, as long as the offensive prowess stays there, it's a no-brainer. I mean, he has the tools. He just has yet to put them together. And maybe that is playing time. Maybe that's just a product of playing time.
Yeah, and having a catching coordinator help fix his mechanics. It's stupid. Okay, who's your third one?
All right, my third one, and this one's not going to be a surprise. I don't think he's going to start the year on the Major League roster, but I think very quickly will be there is Quinn Matthews. I mean, we saw what he was able to do last year in jumping multiple levels.
The entire AAA.
And, I think giving him some time in AAA this year to make sure that wasn't just a fluke of a season. I don't think it is. When you go back and watch him pitch, like I went back and watched highlights and watched some of those games, the minor league games.
Yeah.
Like, dude is legit. The only concern I have will be durability long term. Like, and that's not a knock on him. He just hasn't had to pitch as many innings. And so I think it would be wisdom. I think it would be prudence to say, hey, let's not start him day one in Major League Baseball. Let's let him just continue to grind a little bit down low. Keep that mentality too of like, hey, you still got to earn something here, because he progressed really fast.
Yeah, he did,
and
he hit a wall too.
Right, I don't want to rob him of that.
Yeah,
and I think he has the ability, especially as a lefty, to be a unique player for us moving forward. But I want to in spring. He's going to be in spring. We know that, and so I just want to see some of that dominance. It doesn't have to be every time he's on the mound, because I know he's going to want to work on some things. He's going to want to adjust some things, like you said, where he started to kind of hit that wall towards the end of the year.
Yeah,
there's going to be adjustments that have to happen, but I want to see that same kind of dominance, the K per 9, all of those things kind of mirror what it was when he was making that rise. And if he does that, I don't think he's going to stay in AAA long, because look at some of our starters. I mean, again,
injuries too.
Right. I'm not, I don't want to be mean to Steven Matz, but when's the last time he's played a full season? Right.
Not for us.
Right. Exactly. And so you look at that, Michaelis, can he be that? I mean, realistically, outside of Matz, we don't have a lefty. You do need a lefty in your rotation of some degree, at least to combat that. Or if Palante kind of goes back to what he was and really has success against lefties, even though he's a righty, maybe that the splits pan out. But yeah, he's my guy that I'm really paying attention to on the pitching side of things. I think if you compare him and McGreevy together, that's a nasty 3-4 this year. I don't want Quinn to come up and be labeled as our ace or our number 2. Don't put that pressure on him right away. Put him as a 3-4, maybe even a 5, if you will, and just let him go out there and pitch.
The thing I get nervous about is if the rotation, if the 5-man rotation comes out of spring as is, so Fetty stays, Michaelis stays, Palante, obviously he's going to pitch, Gray, and then Matz ends up making it out of spring healthy. The first pitcher up is probably McGreevy, and if that stays for the rest of the year, which it could not though. I mean, pitchers always get hurt. How does Quinn Matthews get up here if Michaelis is healthy for the entire season, and they, for some dumb reason, they decide not to cut him because he's not needed, and they don't trade Fetty?
Yeah, well, I think that's the difference. So, even let's say Michaelis is having a decent year.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're not really in the picture.
Yeah.
I think his value goes up because he can go somewhere at the trade deadline.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that opens up an avenue for someone like Matthews to come in, again, with low pressure. Not that there will be no pressure.
Yeah.
But a limited amount of pressure on him. Come in.
Yeah.
Just pitch. Let's see you get some innings in at the major league level.
Yeah.
And see what you can do in that regard. Because again, at the end of the day, like, I love the talk about Tink Hence and what he can be, but I need to see him have a good full year in the minors.
He needs some innings.
Right.
I think he's never been over 70 innings before.
Right. And that's why I don't foresee him coming up this year, even though most of the projections for prospects would say he's probably going to make his way, maybe not even into the starting rotation, but into the bullpen at some point.
Yeah.
For us this year, I'd rather not. Like, let him have a full year in the minor system. Let him pitch, every 5 days if he's going to be that starter. Let him bulk some innings in that way, and then maybe looking at him next year is also being a part of that. And I think because of the fast track of Matthews and what he was able to do, I think he's more ready.
Yeah.
Even though Tink's maybe been there a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Matthews is more ready for that opportunity. And I wouldn't be surprised if even before the trade deadline, you see Matthews come up, especially if someone like Matz is struggling to a degree, because Matz has had success out of the bullpen for us when he's healthy.
Yeah, that's my greatest wish, is they just put him in the bullpen at the start of spring. Potentially keeps him healthier because it uses him less, and he's not a dependable starter.
Yeah, I think that's the word, dependable, because, he's had flashes. Like, even for us, he's had flashes and runs where it looks like, man, he could legitimately be a 2-3, and that's Matt's that I'm talking about.
That for 4 years.
But he can never put it all together. He can never put a full season, and it seems like when he goes to the bullpen, whether it's pressure, whether it's mindset, whatever it is, he's a better pitcher from that side.
Yeah.
And so, that's my thought there. And again, you talked Fetty. Fetty could be traded, in 2 weeks, or he could be held on to until the deadline, because I think his value is going to be higher at the deadline because people are always looking for additional starters. You have injuries that happen throughout the season, so people are going to need other starters. So I think you hold Fetty for now and hope that he has a decent season and his value grows and you can offload him. And again, you're creating more spots maybe for these young guys, and maybe Tink Hence does light it up this year and he looks like something, and then you trade these guys at the deadline and you go ahead with a full youth movement because
they have a few depth arms that could cover stuff up.
And that's what they've been signing out of the bullpen too. Like, even some of the moves here recently in the offseason, it's all these, low to mid 30 aged guys that are just going to be innings guys that are going to float up and down from AAA to the major league level depending on injuries and roster availability.
Yeah, the thing I'll say about Matthews, I'm super excited to see him. He's probably the one that's like the personality that's like he's got the dog. He's a dog. He's going to throw and shove for 7 innings, 8 innings, just because he seems to have that mindset. Going from college to his first big league season this year, he put 4 points of velo on his fastball, which is pretty huge. Right. That's a lot. I think he got gas at the end of the year. He talked about a warm up how he just ran out of gas. He'd never pitched that long before. Right. So I think he's got a pretty high ceiling, and he'll be really fun to watch.
Yeah, his mental makeup reminds me of Chris Carpenter.
Yes.
It really does. And again, I'm not putting that.
That's the most Cardinals thing.
Right, I know. And I'm not trying to put that on him. Like, I want him to be his own dude, but, that's all we know is when you start to look back at the Cardinal greats. It's this mentality, and I want to start to see some of that again in our players, and I think he really embodies that.
So for my third and final one, I picked Victor Scott II. He's one of my favorite players to watch right now. He would probably be my second jersey if I could tell that he stayed around for a while. I don't like the idea of this competition in center field between him and Siani. I do buy into the fact that they might put Newbar in center because, especially if Arenado stays, that's the only way to get everybody in the lineup that they need. But if I'm looking at the ceiling of players, Victor Scott's got the way higher ceiling. He didn't hit well at all last year. He wasn't ready. Made an adjustment to his swing mid-season that made a better impact when he came towards the end of the season. But the thing is, dude, his speed is out of this world. If he could learn to be an average hitter, a 100 OPS hitter, 105 OPS plus hitter, I would take that any day. If he could just learn to make basic contact, he could run out so many infield hits that would normally be outs, but he could beat it out. Just he's got top 3 sprint speeds in all of baseball last year. So the dude could get 50 plus bags in a year, and if you have that on base for Mason Wynn, these other hitters, dude, that's game breaking. And he didn't have an outfield coach in the entire minor league season this year, which again is the stupidest thing ever. So his reads were slightly off, but now with the extra coaching that they're adding, that stuff could get better. And he already won a Gold Glove in the minor league, so obviously the defensive ceiling is there. I think he probably got a little overwhelmed in the major leagues, wasn't slightly ready, which is fine. But I think, man, his ceiling, the excitement of that type of player, just to see someone that is an elite speed, elite defender, can just get on base. He has to get on base, obviously, for his steals for that part of his game to work, but that doesn't slump. And so, I don't know, that's my breakout pick for the year too. I think he's gonna surprise everybody.
Yeah, the worst thing that happened,
could be completely off, but
the worst thing that happened to him was just honestly having to be here and start opening day.
Yeah, 100%.
It was, it was the worst thing not because he's a bad player, but because you're right, he wasn't ready for the major league level, and it became very apparent.
I mean, now we lost 3 outfielders in spring.
Yeah, and so that's what made it, just difficult for him, is he wasn't able to adjust to the speed on the hitting side of things.
Yeah.
He does intrigue me. I will be honest and say I'm not completely sold that he is the day one starter in center field.
I'm not sold there either. I want him to be, but
I would love for it. But I think, you look at someone like Ciani, who proved defensively he belonged. There's no doubt about that. The dude made plays. As he played before he got hurt, his bat got better consistently. And I know this isn't what people want to hear. And he's not far off in speed. Now, hear me. Victor is a special breed of speed.
Yeah, but he
is not that far off. And so that's why I think there's more of a competition that comes in center field than per se.
Yeah, but the ceilings is what you're comparing to. Victor's ceiling's higher. Can he reach the ceiling? We don't know.
Right.
But
is it? I mean, let's be honest. And this is where, I see the grin. I know this is where we're going to disagree. I would love to see him succeed, because I think, some of the notion of bringing some of these young guys that have played together in the minor league system up alongside of each other creates a camaraderie that is just a fun thing to watch at the major league level. It creates a chemistry on the field that's undeniable. But I'm just not completely sold that he can take the job from Ciani.
Oh, dude, I am all in. I watched his entire interview from winter warm-up. Dude's been working with John Jay already. Taking notes he's been working with Brown already, working on his hitting. I just think, I don't know, he's got that, I don't know, it's just a hunch. And at the end of the year, this is probably more of a bet I would make, or maybe not a bet I would make, but the dream I would want to see. I want to see him in the leadoff position before the end of the year. I think if you put him at 1, and then put Wynn behind him, dude. And obviously, this all relies on him learning to get on base. His game does not work if he's not on base. But that could be a bunt. That could be a hit to the third baseman that was slow. Or it could be just, a quick line drive right past somebody's glove and he makes it. Or a walk. I don't care. Whatever one. I'd rather see a high average than a high walk rate, personally, for him, I think. His speed needs to come into play, but dude, you're talking about have a 50 to 60 stolen base guy at the top of your lineup.
Oh, 100%.
Every team would want that.
And I think that has to be for him. And I think that's to his disadvantage, unfortunately. Because I think, can he come up and bat in the 9 hole? He should to start this year.
Yeah,
like,
you don't start him.
Right. Like,
unless they were like, all 9 players are not rookies, but they're all young players.
Right.
I could see that.
Yeah. Because I would say the same thing about Siani. Where Siani's advantage is he doesn't profile as a leadoff hitter.
The only thing, when I was looking at Siani's numbers, he had that 2-month period or month-and-a-half period where he was hitting over 300. So during that period, he was hitting like 480. It was ridiculous. But it was all on the good luck side of batted ball data. He just happened to like basically slapstick it the opposite way. He didn't take a good swing. He didn't swing at the right pitch. It was just good luck. And so, like, if you take the good luck away, like we talk with Burleson all the time, bad luck, batted ball data. If you take the good luck away from his hits, he's probably a 150 hitter the whole time.
Right. I mean,
but you got on base, so you take that for sure.
Statistically, they're the same player. Like, as far as statistics, I mean, I'm not going to argue that both him and VS2 are the same player, at least statistically from last year.
Yeah.
They're the same player.
Yeah.
The only advantage is, I would say, the slight uptick to Siani defensively, but I think a lot of that goes back to familiarity.
He's got more
being able to
too.
play. Right. He knows that position a little bit more at the major league level.
Ollie's just not going to be upset. Got to be obsessed with him. If Ollie was obsessed with Victor Scott as he was Siani, it'd be a no-brainer.
Yeah, and again, like, maybe this is the part of me that's like, I don't want to promise too much because, like, I'm starting to ride that line of I don't want to have too many expectations for these young guys.
I know, yeah.
And then get completely bombarded and devastated when they don't.
Right.
And so maybe I'm trying to undersell him so that way if he just comes out and is slightly better than he was last year, I'll be like, oh, man, look at this. This is great. Because again, do I want him to succeed? Absolutely, because I like his personality. I like his flair, if you will. I think it's something that's needed for this Cardinals team.
Yeah.
I think it does remind me, and again, I don't know why I keep doing this in the first episode, but a Vince Coleman-esque type of player for the Cardinals. Like, he's not going to be overly, like, statistically heavy in any one way. But if he can find a way to get on base and he can find a way to steal bases, then he's going to cause problems. I mean, just being on the base pass on a ground ball, he's going to cause problems.
I think Victor Scott in a back-to-back lineup setting is the most whitey ball thing ever, and I think Cardinals fans would like go nuts over that.
Oh,
he's got to get on base. I also think that his defense is as good as Siani's. With Siani, I think he's a Gold Glove center fielder. Did he have not the greatest year last year? Yeah, but he spent all his time in the minors without an outfield coordinator or coach. Seeing, oh, hey, dude, your first step, that's really wrong. Like, stop that.
Yeah, and so we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why it gives me a lot of hope even for Walker again, is you've got somebody that's working with him on the outfield line.
Yeah.
And
I think, too, Victor Scott's got more power potential. You're not looking for power from that position, but would you take 10 homers from Victor Scott over Siani giving you 2? If they're on base the same?
It depends on where he is in the lineup, honestly. If he's your leadoff guy, I mean, honestly, I'll take 5 home runs from him.
Well, sure, but like, he's got more power behind him just from his body and his swing.
Yeah.
So
I guess what scares me about VS2, and not in like a bad scare, but like, does he have the mentality of like a lot of these younger center fielders? They come up as center fielders, but ultimately they're going to transition to a corner spot because they're going to bulk up and they're going to start to swing for more power. His swing does lend to more of a power swing. So as he gets bigger, as far as muscle and changes his swing a little bit, will he be able to hit the ball harder, maybe collect more home runs? Absolutely. But then that's going to deter his speed. That's going to deter his ability to play center field. So that's some of the question I have for him.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. They obviously would need to he's got to make that change. Like, he's pretty high on his own speed though. Like, he thinks he's the best runner in the entire Major League Baseball,
which I hope it stays that way.
If he keeps that mindset, because he's such a confident guy, you could tell. If he keeps that mindset, I don't see why he would want to bulk up just to get 5 more home runs. Because he's not a 30 home run.
No,
he doesn't have he's 5'10". He's super short. Mason Wynn's not either, but that's not what you're looking for those players. Okay, we got to wrap this up. So the last thing, my last question for you before we hit this is, we also want to pay attention to the entire national side of baseball and get outside of our Cardinal bubble a little bit. So for this year and for this show, we're going to incorporate a secondary team to our picks for the year. The thing that a team we're paying attention to, we're also watching. So for you, is there an AL team or another National League team that you are really excited about that you're paying attention to?
I mean, the excited AL team, I'd say for me, is going to be the Astros. And I know that seems a little odd to some degree, but I like what they're doing, even though they didn't extend Tucker. They traded him. Mm-hmm. I probably hate that more because of where Tucker ended up.
Yeah.
But
we pitch really well against him, by the way.
Right. But I think what they're doing is fascinating because they still have Alvarez, who's an absolute stud. There's no doubt about that. I mean,
top 3 hitter.
Yeah. I mean, I
5
think
maybe.
What they're doing with their infield is interesting. I mean, signing Walker to be their first baseman.
Yeah.
I mean,
underrated signing.
Right. That is going to be huge for them, not only on the offensive side of things, but dude is an elite level defensive first baseman as well. And so you talk about kind of the uptick there. Paredes getting traded to them. Mm-hmm. I think he's an underrated player, ultimately coming from Tampa Bay, then was in Chicago last year, now in Houston. I think what they're doing is quietly putting together another solid team with young players. My biggest question for them is obviously going to be the pitching. Can it hold up? I mean, you've got Javier, you've got Valdez. Brown looks like he's going to be a stud. Hunter Brown. Looks like he's going to be legit.
And their system at developing pitching is pretty unreal.
Right. I think the one guy that I'm really looking at that kind of intrigues me a little bit, and when I play like out of the park baseball, I always try and find a way to see if I can trade for this guy, is Spencer Arangetti.
Oh, yeah.
Like a young dude, hasn't had a tremendous amount of success. I think on some levels, this is kind of that critical year for him to kind of make that turn if he wants to be legitimately there, or will someone else kind of sneak in and rob him from the Astros as far as a trade and then develop him down the road in that regard. But I think he's going to be given every opportunity to make the opening day roster as far as a starting pitcher. They've got a lot of mid-level, like when I say mid-level, they're 30 to 35-year-old guys that are there pitching for them. So, like, they have a veteran presence. They've gotten younger. The two big questions, again, are going to be starting pitching, and then what are they going to do in the outfield, especially now that they've moved on.
They're going to move, what's his name out there? Who's the short guy? I'm blanking on his name.
Altuve to left field.
They talked about moving Altuve to left field.
Yeah. We'll see, right? We'll see if that actually goes.
Miss the ball.
Well, I mean, that short left field wall, the Crawford box is there, doesn't really mean he has to cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
They have some prospect options that are intriguing, if you will, but none of them really stand out. A lot of them are more defensive minded. And so if they're going to make that shift, I think they hung their hat on Chas McCormick. He had that really big year a couple of years ago, fell off last year. And so can he rebound a little bit?
He didn't have a great 24, but he finished 23 really well.
Right.
I remember.
And so I think, that's why they intrigue me. I know they're hated to a degree.
That's fine.
With fans, but I like that. And then
I like him a lot.
And then another NL team, as painful as it is for me to say that I'm just going to be paying attention to, is the Cubs.
Yeah.
I don't want to, but what they're doing, I mean, they're stocking up to go for it this year.
Yeah.
And I'll be interested to see if they can actually make a run and compete with the teams like the Dodgers or even the Padres. Like, I think they're still undersold out there in the West.
I agree. I'm agree with you on Houston. I think an underrated part of the moves is Paredes in Minute Maid or whatever it's called now. But with the Crawford boxes and his pool profile, he could add 10 home runs to his potential year. I mean, they only play 81 games in that ballpark, but that's why Arenado going there would have been amazing for his stat page just because of that profile. Brown's going to be great. The only thing is Valdez, it's his walk year. Are they going to sign him? Because he's going to be expensive.
I don't think they sign him, but if he's pitching well, you just ride him out.
Yeah. I do think Hunter Brown's going to be super legit. And they, for some reason, figure out how to have these, to get these like 33-year-old Dominican pitchers to be studs for a certain amount. Like Blanco having a no-hitter his rookie year.
Right.
And he's not like the most amazing pitcher in the world, but somehow they get everything out of him.
He's 31 years old and he's coming back. And it's like,
he's cheap.
Right. Can he do it again?
Yeah. I'm with you there. The Cubs are intriguing too. Suzuki, what are they going to do with Suzuki is a big question I have because Tucker's going to go right field.
Yeah.
So are they going to DH him? But then they have a rookie at first base and they're going after Bregman. You never know. But yeah, I think they're poised to be the division leaders unless their chemistry just doesn't make sense. But and you don't see that until. So for my pick, I am really, really into. Well, first of all, let me show the history of why I do this. In 2023, when I really started getting into baseball, at the beginning of the year, I watched the moves of the offseason. I said the Rangers are like the most underrated team. And they went to the World Series, and they won the World Series. In 24, I did call it.
You called it. I'll give you props.
In 24, I looked at everything, and I was like, Juan Soto going to the Yankees, and then what they put around him, I was like, that's an underrated team, and they went to the World Series. It's not my fault that the 5th inning of Game 5 happened, because if that wouldn't have happened, I would have been 2 for 2. So my pick
you're putting
this
that
year,
on Judge.
Judge and really, really dumb coaching, terrible coaching. Chris's son would probably agree with me. My pick this year is the Red Sox. I really, really like that team. I kind of always have a little bit. Fenway is like one of my dream ballpark to go to and visit. But the offense that they've had for the last couple of years, I think, has been super underrated and super overlooked because their pitching's been pretty bad. This year, though, they traded for Garrett Crochet. They gave up a really good prospect for it, but they got Garrett Crochet, and that dude is nasty. I think he was the strikeout leader in the AL last year. He is a former reliever. Last year was the first year he started, and his innings are going to be limited still because they're still stretching him out. But like that's the most. Who's the starter that went to the Braves from them? I'm blanking on his name right now for some reason. Sale. That's the most like Chris Sale-like move that they made. And the same type of stuff. And so I think he's a stud. So they got an ace in a trade, and they've got for like another 3 years. They added Walker Buehler, who didn't have the greatest year, but ended with a World Series ring and pitched really, really well in the playoffs, except for he had 2 bad starts and I think 3 really good starts, and then he closed the last game out. And he's considered like one of those playoff pitchers. And it's on a 1-year deal. He's got something to prove because he wants a big contract after that. So I think they're pitching, and then what's it? How do you pronounce his name? I'm blanking on his name, but they have he was in an All-Star last year. That blonde kid, but he's really Tanner Houck. That's what I was blanking on his last name for some reason. Houck was an All-Star last year, incredible starter. So they got 2 more elite starters around him. So they've got a really nasty 1, 2, 3. as long as they stay healthy, the rotation will be solid. Devers is an incredible bat, like an incredible left-handed bat. Jarren Duran had an unreal season last year. I think he could take it up to another level. So I just like their team profile, and then the AL in general is just really weak. It's Houston, the Yankees, the Red Sox obviously being my pick. So I just don't think there's a lot of competition in the AL right now, and I think they'll step up. And if they supposedly, there's rumors out there floating that they're looking for a third baseman. So if they can move Devers off of the infield and either put him at first base or DH between him and Casas, their defense gets better because Devers is an atrocious defender. He's always been a bat-first player. So I don't know. It just makes sense. And I'm 2 for 2.
Hey. Well, I can't argue with the 2 for 2.
And the Yankees have said, the Talking Yanks guys have said the team they're most scared about is Boston. More than Houston, more than anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that's the rivalry talking to there, so I'll give you that.
Probably. Rangers are also really, I'm kind of high on this year too.
Yeah. Man, part of me just can't get away from it, especially now hearing the Cease trade talks and all that stuff that the Padres are potentially looking at moving Cease to Baltimore. If Baltimore can find a way to get a couple pitchers, I think that could be a really dangerous team. We saw what they were able to do last year.
Saw them fall apart, though, too.
Yeah, right. That's what I say. I mean, there's some growth, but they're young players, and I think they give a little bit of hope to maybe what the Cardinals can do. Now, hear me. The Cardinals don't have the prospect ratings that Baltimore had and the prospects that they brought up.
Yeah, so but they had like 3-4 number 1 picks.
Right. That's why. And so, I like Boston. I think the Yankees are going to have a tremendous fall off, and maybe that's just wishful thinking on my end, just because I don't like them.
I agree with you.
But I think it could become a 2-horse race there in the AL East between Baltimore and Boston.
Oh, so you're taking Yankees, making them third.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know about that. So Baltimore has a good, just solid team. Their pitching they need to make moves, but if they don't, because we've seen their GM be really stubborn about it. He even came out and said he's like, I'm not trading my young talent. Well, it's like, you need pitching though. Like no matter how good your hitters are, you're not going to be a good team if you don't have good pitching.
Yeah.
So I'll give him that. They also said, I remember, I don't know if it was the manager or the GM, that Adley's going to catch less because he fell off last year. And so if he catches less games, DHs more, his bat will pick back up. So, I mean, you make a good point, but that's still only 4 teams. And there's 2 left in the playoff picture.
I mean, I say the AL's, again, there's always a surprise team that comes out of nowhere. Whether
the Angels.
It's right. It could be. I mean, I would hang my hat more on the Athletics, even though we all know the situation that they're walking into. Right. Of being a surprise team that could they got nothing to play for. They got no pressure. Yeah. You go out there relaxed, and sometimes, man, you just put wins together. Yeah. I'm not counting on that, but,
They also gave Rooker that 5 years, the most criminally underrated extension ever.
Right. And he took it, so.
He did take it.
That's on him, so. But, I mean.
We'll have to see.
That's my thoughts.
So, spring training starts this week. I think pitchers and catchers report tomorrow, and then that means camp starts Wednesday, so it's really exciting. The Super Bowl is finally over, so it's officially baseball season until November. So it's exciting times. But for my good friend Brian Caplinger and I, thanks for listening and taking us. If you guys want to comment in the comments wherever this goes, have fun, join the conversation, and tell us we're wrong and we make terrible decisions about players. That's really cool too. But thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.